Nevertheless, what happened is that I heard a pop. I heard two shots. And I didn't know what the hell was going on.
So Stephen A. Smith just gave us a first-hand account of a shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And this changes everything about media security. He was literally 10 feet from the president when shots rang out. We're getting raw testimony from someone who lived through the chaos, plus his take on conspiracy theories and Trump's response.
But for the purposes of what transpired this weekend, I felt the need to address it because I was there. I was in the room. And it was a crazy, crazy experience, to say the least. First of all, we all know by now that a shooter penetrated the perimeter at the Washington Hilton Hotel.
The Washington Hilton has dark history. This is where John Hinckley shot Reagan in 1981. Having a shooting at the same location 40 years later isn't just coincidence, it's a glaring indictment of security planning. The fact that he was in the actual room gives this account unprecedented credibility.
I was sitting at a table approximately 10 to 15 feet to the right of the President of the United States. The Vice President was sitting a few seats down to the President's left, for a bit further away. They were on opposite ends of the podium, or the table, rather.
Being 15 feet from the president during an active shooter situation puts him in the inner circle of witnesses. That proximity means he saw the Secret Service protocols up close, the immediate response, the evacuation procedures, the split-second decisions that protect our highest officials.
And then the next thing you know, you just heard commotion and you saw Secret Service running in there and running up to the vice president and then to the president to shield them and to get them the hell up out of there. Meanwhile, they were screaming at all of us to get down, get down. And what I saw was, whether it was Secret Service or law enforcement with an AR rifle, looked like I don't know, it was an AK-47 AR rifle. I don't know what the hell it was, aiming it into the crowd. And that's where the panic sort of kicked in.
When Secret Service agents draw rifles and start screaming, "Get down," that's DEFCON 1, maximum threat response. This wasn't a false alarm or minor disturbance. The presence of assault weapons and immediate evacuation protocols confirms this was a genuine, life-threatening security breach.
Because in the moment that it was transpiring, we weren't sure if the shooter was in the actual room with the journalist. Now, just a minute or so ago, I brought up the fact that as we were walking in, there were protesters. Protesters were screaming about the Epstein files. They were screaming about the war in Iran. They were screaming about the United States working in concert with Israel to engage in genocide and stuff like these are the kind of things that they were saying outside the Washington Hilton Hotel as they were protesting.
Those protest topics, Epstein files, Iran tensions, Gaza conflict, represent the most explosive political issues of 2024. These aren't random grievances. They're the exact flashpoint issues driving political violence nationwide. The shooter was marinating in this toxic stew of conspiracy and outrage.
They weren't even talking about the president or the vice president or anything. They were talking about the media because they feel that the media has not done its job and has engaged in a dereliction of duty by not pointing out some of the transgressions that they perceive this administration to be committing.
This is crucial. The protesters weren't targeting politicians. They were targeting journalists for dereliction of duty. That makes every reporter in that room a potential target. Media figures suddenly became the primary threat focus, not just collateral damage in political violence.
And then when you heard the pop, that's the sound that I heard. And you saw Secret Service running towards the stage while screaming at all the media members to get down, get down, get down. We're looking around, and what scared the living hell out of everybody was that you thought, at least for a few seconds, that the room had been penetrated, that the shooter was in the room, and that could be aiming for any of us.
Imagine the terror. Hearing gunshots, seeing armed agents, not knowing if the shooter is in your room scanning for targets. That primal fear of imminent death puts everything in perspective. Anyone claiming this was staged clearly wasn't there feeling that raw human panic.
So you've got a lot of conspiracy theorists out there claiming that this was all rigged, it was planned, it was coordinated or whatever. Me personally, people can have their opinions, their conjecture or whatever, but it would be irresponsible for me or any journalist to jump to that conclusion. We're not going to do that.
This is journalistic integrity at its finest. While conspiracy theorists spin wild theories from their keyboards, he's using his actual presence as evidence. Being an eyewitness gives him authority that internet speculators can never match. He lived through the chaos they're theorizing about.
Ultimately, we learned that a Secret Service agent had been shot, but he was okay because he had on a bulletproof vest, and that they had apprehended the assailant, who ended up being a school teacher from California, a second grade school teacher, and we didn't know anything else beyond that point.
A second grade teacher turned would-be assassin is chilling. This wasn't some unhinged loner. This was someone trusted with children who snapped. The fact that Secret Service protection failed against a school teacher exposes massive security vulnerabilities at the highest levels.
We're living in some very, very troubling times. And this is not a time to point fingers and blame anybody.
He's refusing to play partisan blame games even after nearly being shot. Most commentators would use this as ammunition against their political enemies, but he's taking the high road. This mature response elevates him above the typical media circus mentality.
What I will say is this. I'm sick and tired of us giving lip service to the narrative of dialing down the rhetoric. We need enough of that. Stop talking about it and do it.
He's calling out the performative politics perfectly. Everyone gives lip service to lowering the temperature, then goes right back to inflammatory rhetoric. His demand to stop talking and do it cuts through the BS. He wants actual behavioral change, not empty gestures.
What happened last night is exactly the reason that our great military, Secret Service, law enforcement, and for different reasons, every president for the last 150 years have been demanding that a large, safe, and secure ballroom be built on the grounds of the White House. This event would never have happened with the military top secret ballroom currently under construction at the White House.
Here comes his most surprising take, defending Trump's ballroom proposal. This shows real intellectual honesty. He's about to argue that even his biggest critic can make valid points about security. That takes integrity most commentators don't possess.
If it's the White House Correspondents' Dinner, why the hell is it not at the White House? It's a very simple question, logically. Am I missing something? If it's the White House Correspondents' Dinner, why the hell is it at some hotel that anybody could be in?
The logic is bulletproof. It's like holding the Super Bowl MVP ceremony at a random hotel instead of the stadium. The White House Correspondents' Dinner at a public hotel makes zero security sense when you're protecting the president and vice president simultaneously.
But I don't think it's beyond the pale for the president of the United States to point out that the White House Correspondents' Dinner should be at the White House, because that is clearly a more secure location than the Washington Hilton Hotel.
This is political maturity in action. He's separating good ideas from bad messengers. Most people can't admit their opponents make valid points, but he's putting security over partisan loyalty. That intellectual honesty is exactly what's missing from modern political discourse.
Being one of those individuals there, you understand, who grew up in the streets of New York City, that is not foreign to gunfire and violence, because I've seen it in my lifetime. I didn't like being a grown-ass adult at a White House Correspondents' Dinner with the presidents of networks and beyond all in the same room and watching thousands of people literally forced to duck for cover under tables and chairs, praying that a shooter wasn't in the room just looking to spray gunfire in our direction.
His street credibility makes this even more powerful. Someone who's heard gunfire in New York saying he was genuinely terrified shows the severity. Network presidents and media moguls diving under tables, that image captures how helpless everyone felt in that moment.
Let's just be honest about it and understand that at times, even from people we dislike or we don't approve of, particularly when it comes to their verbiage, their antagonistic tendencies, their narcissism, their belligerence, and juvenile tendencies, it doesn't mean that everything they say is wrong.
The dead clock metaphor is perfect. He's modeling how adults should handle political disagreement, judge ideas on merit, not on who says them. This nuanced thinking is what we need more of instead of reflexive partisan opposition to everything.
Stuff like this should be on the grounds of the White House. It shouldn't be at some damn hotel in D.C. that just anybody could get into. It just shouldn't.
His firsthand terror reinforces the argument. When someone who just lived through a shooting says, "Move this to the White House," that carries weight. Common sense security backed by personal experience, that's an unbeatable combination for policy arguments.
And it was at the same damn hotel that this just happened. Nearly 40 years, about 40 years later. Let's remember that. Let's remember that. As times change, they kind of don't, if we really think about it.
That Reagan parallel hits hard. Same hotel, same vulnerability, 4 decades apart. His observation that times change, they kind of don't, is sobering. We're still making the same security mistakes that nearly killed a president in 1981.